Hello friends, greetings to all of you in the beautiful name of Jesus Christ. Welcome to Bible Talk series episode 2. We prayerfully present this episode in a very simple and relatable manner, believing that you will surely get encouraged by hearing this.
So please watch this episode till the end.
Today's topic is obedience is followed by miracle. Or in other words, we can say our little act of obedience open greater and bigger ways for God's miracle in our life.
In order to understand this, let's meditate on 3 major events related to Jesus' life. The best way to meditate is to see ourselves as an eyewitness and putting ourselves at that very place where the things are happening around. So let's jump into it.
The first event, marriage of Cana. We all know this story. A Jewish wedding where Jesus along with his disciples and Mother Mary were invited. Then a serious problem occurred. The marriage ran short of wine. This was a great cause of humiliation and insult for the host of the marriage, which even could cause cancellation of marriage itself.
And we all know what happens next. Jesus comes to the scene, takes the charge of the whole situation and commands the worker there to fetch some water and fill those empty jars of wine completely with water.
Wait, with water? Seriously? If you were the host and you ran short of food and someone told you to fill empty containers of food with water, what will be your reaction? Same was the situation there.
Workers present at the marriage of Cana could have questioned, "Master, come on, we ran short of wine, not of water. Then why do you want us to fill those empty jars with water? That seems simply illogical and nonsense." But they didn't question anything. All they did was just silently obeyed.
Now, whenever we think of this event, we usually focus on 2 things, water and wine. But for this moment of time, let's shift our focus from water and wine to those workers who didn't question anything but silently obeyed.
And guess what happens next? A miracle followed their obedience. Jesus performs his very first public miracle as a Messiah, and water turns into wine.
Now, the second event, raising Lazarus from the dead. This is the most amazing miracle of all the time, which even caused many Jewish rabbis to believe in Jesus as a Messiah.
Lazarus was sick and finally dead. His body was lying inside the tomb for 4 days, already started to decompose and stink. Now Jesus arrives at the scene, again with an instruction which sounded more illogical and nonsense even to sisters of Lazarus.
Jesus commands to roll the stone from the grave where body of Lazarus has started to decompose and stink. Now, instead of focusing on Lazarus, let's shift our focus to those men who rolled the stone from the grave. What was going through their mind while they were doing this? What a nonsense act to roll the stone from the grave where dead body has already started to smell.
But neither they questioned nor they denied. All they did was just silently obeyed. And guess what? What followed their obedience? One of the greatest miracles of all time. 4 days dead Lazarus came back to life.
Now, the third and the last event, Jesus feeding 5,000 men. Matthew chapter 14 says, after preaching for whole day, Jesus asked his disciples to make some food arrangements to feed the crowd. The crowd consisted of 5,000 men. So if women and children were also included, the head count goes up to approximately 13,000 to 15,000 people.
Now, disciples had no clue what to do next. All they had was just 5 bread and 2 fishes. Again, Jesus comes to the scene and commands his disciple to make those 15,000 people sit in a row so that he could make some food arrangements with those 5 bread and 2 fishes.
Wait, just 5 breads and 2 fishes to feed 15,000 people? That's crazy. For disciples, it would have taken more than an hour to make those 15,000 people to sit in a row, and that too when there is no food.
Now, whenever we think of this event, we usually focus on 2 things, those 5 bread and 2 fishes. But for this moment of time, let's shift our focus from those bread and fishes to those 12 disciples whom Jesus commanded to make those 15,000 people sit in a row, and that too when food was not available. Now imagine if we were the disciples there, then we would have surely raised the question, Rabbi, you want us to make those 15,000 people sit in a row, but where is the food? Making those 15,000 people sit without having a food, that sounds simply illogical and nonsense.
But even though this was beyond their understanding, yet they didn't raise any question. All they did was just silently obey it.
What happens next? A heavenly miracle followed their obedience, feeding 15,000 people with just 5 bread and 2 fishes. All we can see is that their obedience opened the ways for a heavenly miracle.
Friends, similarly, many times God talks to us in our heart in many different ways and asks us to do certain things which may seem a bit illogical and difficult to us, like believing in something which we can't see or even feel,
or denying something which is very dear to us, or in this world, choosing an uncommon path of righteousness for God.
Let's never forget, His ways are God's ways, not yours or mine. Even His foolishness is of higher standard than human wisdom. How good it will be that instead of being overthinkers or doubters, we just become obedient.
Yes, that's exactly what He wants us to do, just to believe and obey Him silently.
Because our little act of obedience can open greater and bigger ways for God's miracle in our life.